Welcome to Rauta's retrospective videos. This time we go to Mexico, technically speaking United States, and actually international waters, because we're talking about Brujeria, a band that is known for many as a Mexican band. Reality, however, is it's more complicated than that, and those who know the band or anything about it also know that it's quite of a supergroup, even though not the most obvious ones. Now, throughout the years, of course, the band's lineup has changed and all that stuff. We won't be touching that too deeply, but it's worth mentioning and you will soon find out more why. Now, of course, we go also through the recordings, albums being the most focused, but let's be mentioned that I went through a lot of EPs and even some demo material just to get better grip of the whole things, reminding me how the things have changed over the years, over the decades to be honest. And why I decided to pick Brujeria is of course because I did interview the band a few years ago. So this is a little bit throwback to that interview in question. And of course, it is nice to listen to some music that you haven't been really listening to for a while, except that I went for their second latest album recently when I was going through all my record collection and all. But enough introduction and random babble here. This is Brujeria, and let's start going through the very band. Now, Brujeria was founded in, or at least is based in Los Angeles, California. And really it says here, Spanish word for witchcraft. So, good band name. You can translate it to witchery or whatever. But basically, we're touching once again those classic names of the bands that can be translated to many languages and very, very suitable for a metal band. Now, what is interesting is that genre-wise, it's often labeled as death groove, metal, grindcore. Yes, these are all, in my opinion, quite accurate because there's definitely a lot of grind stuff going on in Brujeria's music, especially the early years. However, later on it's more death metal. But putting groove metal on the map is actually quite truthful because it's not pure death metal. It's not even pure death grind, but that is close enough. So groove metal definitely has a little bit thing going on with Brujeria's music, especially later on. Now, when it comes to the themes here, that is lyrical themes, drug smuggling, Mexican pride, Satanism, sex, gore, racism, politics. Well, I'm no Spanish speaker. I speak a little bit of that and I can read a little bit of that. But mostly my language skills with Spanish language ain't enough to really go through them. So I'll just quickly recap it right here instead of focusing on that like I did with some other videos, other retrospective themes, where I actually read all the album lyrics and I could talk about for them like hours basically. But these are all very true. You will find different topics related to drug trafficking. You will find about politics and racism, all that Mexican thing related to one another. I mean, Mexico things are of course related to drug smuggling. We all know that things like marijuana, cocaine, whatever are related to Mexican culture. Not in a positive way necessarily, of course, but it's a very, very important factor that these are relevant things been for decades, and as such Brujeria is really tapping into that stuff in a way that is, I don't know, very suitable in a way. And that comes with also the band's approach, the visual style. We'll talk about that later on. And of course this is then again related to racism and politics. Politics is always related to racism or vice versa, so there's not really it's kind of obvious. And of course, when we talk about the lineup, it becomes more obvious than that. But what matters more is, what is Brujeria then all about? Started already in the 80s, but it took few years, like typical band does, before they went for the first full album, 1993. That was followed in 1995 by Raza Oriada and Brujerismo another 5 years later. As you can see, being a band that has been here for more than 30 years, 35 give or take, it's quite interesting that there's this big gap with Brujerismo and Pocho Atzlan. My favorite album, by the way. So 16 years and nothing but compilations or singles came through those years. So while there is no inactivity mentioned in Metal Archives, you can pretty much figure out something was happening during those years. And then it took another 7 years for them to bring out the latest album that came last year, Esto es Brujeria. So what can we start with? Of course, the first album, obviously. Before that, there was this Demoniaco and Machetazos EPs back in the early 90s, so quite quickly things started happening. And this is interesting. It was here mentioned that the band was formed in 1989 by Juan Brujo, Fantasma, Pillow Gould, and Asesino, and beyond that, you will find the basic information here, which is mentioned here. And there is a reason why the band keeps this style, which is often having the kind of a cartel look here. I mean, you have the scarves, which are of course hiding the identity. You have caps, in which case they say Brujeria, and in general you get the shirts, which are as much related to say grunge as to hardcore attitude and all that stuff, and quite big guys overall. Now already some people will figure out some known names in this image, and those who know, but of course a lot of these people are not something that you would probably recognize just by walking on the streets. Anyway, so what started in 1989 became a full album a few years later, having very, very brutal cover, a real photo of, well, Mexican crime and all that stuff. And as you can see, already quite a few tracks, 19 tracks over 32 or 33 minutes, which is not a typical when we're talking about grindcore and or death grind and all that stuff. Now, this is exactly more the focus being on the grind stuff. And those who like it, well, that's why you get these high review scores and all that stuff. I'll make my personal note here and say, never been a big grind fanatic, so this early material isn't really my cup of tea. Never was, probably never will be. But those who like it, well, Raza Odiada is a good continuation or a good successor to that stuff. While there is no fewer tracks, the overall length is even more, which means the songs in general are getting lengthier, but still the basic same idea. Quite short ones, 2 minutes or even 1 minute some cases, is very true. But you're already seeing the changing pattern here a few years later. Now, when we go for third album, Brujerismo, which is more than 10 years after the band was founded, you will see this pattern still being quite through. 13 tracks, so less than before, but album like this is only 35 minutes. So the pattern is not changing here too much. However, this is not as much liked as the previous ones. I'm saying this is my theory alone, is that some people just preferred so much the early material, liking the pure kind of grind stuff and all, politics and all, that when the changes started happening, the old fans were probably, I'm not liking it anymore. While it probably invoked some newer people like, why not? And these EPs between there are actually pretty much in line with the overall progression. I'm stopping it here because, like I said, after that, this part here starts the bigger hiatus moment. So this is like the second wave and first wave. And the first wave is very, very consistent in style. It's more grindy. It's more kind of hardcore-ish in that sense and all that stuff. Mind you, there's an interesting anecdote with Marijuana EP, which is actually Los del Rio cover. You know, like, hey, can you know what the song is all about? And this is their take with the song with Marijuana. So it's an interesting cover basically, because it's like half a cover, half their version. You know, their lyrics and all that stuff. So yeah, it's Macarena, Macarena. Marijuana. It's a good joke in my opinion. Anyway, those who don't remember the Macarena song are probably like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But those who know, they instantly click it. I understand it. It's actually one of the funniest cover I've ever heard, and it's very, very good in that sense. But this is the early era, grind stuff and all. Now, then the band started their hiatus, more or less, even though it's not the official one. And when they came back with 2016, it was almost like a new band, now signed to Nuclear Blast and all. And while it's still kind of the same, it's also different. Now the album is past 45 minutes marker, still having the same amount of songs, meaning obviously they are longer. Not so much in anymore 1-2 minute songs, but averaging more than 3 minutes per song. Or roughly that era. So there's already a change. And when we go to the latest album, Esto es Brujeria, it's 53 minutes. So basically almost twice the original amount, and still the amount of songs is not that much more. So while the change isn't that drastic, obviously the second era of Brujeria is where the groove metal and death metal entered the game more than ever before. As such, my favorite album is Pocho Atlan because it's more death metallic. There's a kind of heaviness combining the Brujerian grindcore things and the same themes that kind of take me the right way. While Esto's Brujeria is almost as good as Pocho, it's just not that catchy and not that violent album in my opinion. So yeah, there are differences, but the differences are not major ones between these two. I mean, the jump between their first album after these ones are bigger. And once again, you have the singles where there's not much really to tell. They are singles. They are not EPs having different songs. Now, talking about the lineup, this is pretty interesting because if you like a look at here, yes, Phantasma doing the bass and vocals very much since the beginning. There are no metal bands worth listening so much. But this is where it gets interesting. Hongo, guitars and bass since 1989. Yes, he's the Napalm Death guy, Shane Embury. So this is why there's a bunch of bands and you can already, of course, pinpoint him here with the known haircut and all. So yes, he's been part of that stuff. And sometimes it feels almost like Brujeria definitely has quite a bit of Napalm Death in the take, in the mix and all that stuff. While Brujeria sounds at some points like, Mexican version of Napalm Death. Obviously there are lots of differences, but certain riffs you could probably, replace them with some Napalm stuff or replace some Napalm Death stuff with Brujeria stuff and it would probably work. So that's probably the signature stuff. Other thing is Juan Brujo vocals since 1989. This is something, in my opinion, is one of the most important factors in Brujeria. The strong Spanish vocal style. It's very, very powerful how the execution is. And I like the sound where it's about, death metal vocals or whatever. I think it really, really could. Other than that, the rest of the, people, the lineup has changed. You can see 2015, 2016, even 2022. So for example, in this case, the female vocals are different than what I had in my interview around 2018. When you look at the past members, it's quite massive. And there are more legends to be found. Like, look at the Guerrero Sin Fe. Used to be the Fate No More guy. I mean, still is, but, Fate No More. Or look at the Asesino. He has bands here like Fear Factory. Okay, you got the Zicon Jr., ex-Ministry, okay, live but still, and Melvins. You have Hongo Jr., who has also quite a bit of band, and this is where it gets interesting because you spot, okay, there's Shining, there's Anal Nathrak, there's Ancient. Who is this guy? Well, I know the answer already, but I want to show it to you. None else than Nicholas Parker, also known for Cradlefield, Dimmu Borgir and whatnot. So when you really look at this stuff here, it's pretty wild. Yes, you can see Dimmu Borgir here, you can see Lock Up, Old Man's Child, etc. Even Testament, Borgnagar, Cancer. Wow, this is where you get like, okay, it's Supergroup, Fate No More guy, Napalm Death guy, Fear Factor guy, Nicholas fucking Barker. And it doesn't even stop there. There's El Angelito, Tony Laureano. Yes, very skilled guy. And look at this release, being Cannibal Corpse Live. He's blazing other interesting bands over the years, Malevolent Creation, Megadeth, Nachtmuseum, Black Dahlia Murder, even that kind of stuff. Then you have El Podrido, also a famous nun, Adrian Erlandsson. Oh yeah, you remember bands like At the Gates or Haunted, etc. So look at this list, it's magnificent. It doesn't even stop there because there's El Clavador, Ex Cargas, Arch Enemy, etc. So wow, what a supergroup band. This is in my opinion very, very interesting because it doesn't change the fact what Brujeria's music is, all about how it sounds and all that stuff, but it kind of proves there's something more than just guys who playing like some Mexican music with grind and death metal. So very, very cool overall. Now, like I said, when we're talking about the lyrics, I can't really go much deeper into that because, like I said, they're all Spanish. So whatever you read here, you will figure out it's about Mexican crime, Mexican pride, racism, politics, drug trafficking, all that stuff. And these cover images pretty much go hand in hand. You will see drug themes like the marijuana stuff. You will see Mexican drug cartel things and In general, lots of violence, lots of Mexican things. Why I'm opening that again, I don't know. But however, Pocho Aztlan is actually more like, let's go back to the culture before the Europeans started invading whole North America, South America, and whatever. And suddenly this is more about the culture that was there before the skyscrapers started doing. And here it says here Pochowood instead of Hollywood. So this is probably the point where the pre-Mexican culture, that predates the actual stuff is right there. And finally, esto es brujeria. Brujeria is not exactly touching neither topic, that stuff. So the visual style has also changed throughout the years. Now, personally, I would say if you like grindcore, you should start with the earlier stuff. If you like death metal and you don't mind groove metal, then you can start with any of these 2 later albums. 5 different albums, 2 different waves. That's pretty much what Brujeria is all about. The only shame is they only do albums so randomly, so rarely these days, compared to the earlier when you had 3 albums in 7 years. Now you have had only 2 albums within past 24 years. That's really a shame considering their entertainment, what they offer live, and how good the albums sound. In my opinion, it's one of the most unique bands out there when it comes to the music and the themes and how they're portraying these themes. So definitely worth checking out. And of course, if I got you interested, go for the old interview I did them a few years ago. I hope to come back and do another interview someplace, someday, somewhere about the band these days, and go on with the topics we had back in the days. But I hope this was at least a little bit information for you why to check out Brujeria and all that stuff. Now, if you have comments or questions about it, let me know, and if I can answer, I will, and if not, I will try to wait to send forward those questions. Now, off you go, and once again, more retrospective videos coming your way as I have more time to go through certain bands that I've interviewed, and let's do it. But if you want to find already more, there's already Archcode, At the Gates, and Amunamat and Cannibal Corpse retrospective videos done, and more will be done in coming months. Take care, stay metal.